What's up, y'all? Back again. So, The Sun Does Shine. It was written by Anthony Ray Hinton. I believe this was really hit national news back in 2018 last year. Basically, a gentleman, man, he was in his early 20s, and he was accused of a crime that he didn't do. Now, it was like 3 crimes, 3 murders. Actually, I'm sorry, it was 2 murders, and one was an abduction and assault. And what happened was he was working at a supermarket, and this crime scene happened 15 miles away from where he worked at, where he was stationed at, and he used to work midnights. And they dig into his files, and they accused him of doing this because first they said, he was black, and number 2, I mean, that's just what they do. Like, a lot of judges in the state of Alabama, they get appointed and they get employed for the amount of people they send in death row. So that's just pretty much a huge representation of the state. And the really thing is that he had an incompetent lawyer who was getting paid $1,000, only just $1,000 by the state, and he's had a failure of just really just looking into the intercontinental ballistic, or ballistic with bullets whatsoever, so he can really just have a good forensics accurate evidence and who actually really killed these people, man, and did this crime. He didn't do anything of it. He didn't do none of it. I mean, it was just crazy, but he had a hard time. He didn't have any type of representation to prove it. And, it was coming from a, inner city, a poor home. It was just him and his mother. And, I was just thinking, like, it's just really a huge flaw in the American justice system. The book itself, it goes really into depth of how, he perceived it was. He had a positive mindset at first, though, but, the first few years, man, when he was just witnessing individuals getting killed, man, I mean, he was just in a jail cell in 120 degrees weather, man. I mean, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. It was very hot, man. I mean, this is during the summer days. He used to have breakfast I think he said like 2 in the morning, something like that. Lunch at 10 in the morning, and then you had like dinner at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon every single day. And what really gave him some type of inspiration is that he had a huge biblical background. It really mentioned that even though he was locked up from that particular time, and all the time he did educate himself. He started a book club. He talked to many different correctional officers. But it just really makes you think that when he was locked up in the book, and he said, the cop said, listen, you're not going to get off because number 1, you're going to have you're black. Number 2, the man's gonna say, hey, you shot him and you're African American. That's just what it is. You have a white attorney and a white jury, and the jury is pretty much, if it's like a huge piggyback. It's like a stronghold of the American justice system in general. I mean, you gotta have like 12 witnesses, and if they sit up here be biased, I mean, at the end of the day, they just have to go with that, man. So the lawyers just have to pretty much act and present their case. And I was just reading this, man, it just almost like in tears though, but the whole huge endurance and the perseverance that you need to get through this, man, is crazy. I mean, just in death row, not in regular prison, state prison, just death row. Like, any time that you can get executed. I heard that said in the state of Alabama since 1975 that they have like 7 exonerations and like 34 executions, and only 1 person that remained innocent since then. And they get a lot of money just from these executions. I mean, you're just like another number. He said you develop relationships with individuals that domestic problems, individuals that actually murdered people, and then they wanted to change their life around, but later on they had an execution date. And I couldn't even imagine. It's like 30 years, man. And he came in contact with Bryan Stevenson. Bryan Stevenson was his lawyer that actually really helped him out. He was a good African American lawyer. Did everything he could to help individuals, man, present their case. People who he worked with individuals that had financial struggles. They really couldn't afford a good lawyer at the time. But luckily his case he went to the Supreme Court justice, and they later dismissed it. And he met Richard Branson. He met a lot of individuals in the Virgin Islands. And it was like a huge culture shock for him, because you've been locked up since 1986, and then you got out I want to say 2015, if I'm not mistaken, man. He used to read, he had the GPS. I mean, his boy picked him up, and it was just kind of crazy. But without his family support, man, And I think he had a friend that mentioned him. I think his name was Frank, but he used to come visit him each and every single day and give him moral support and him reading the Bible. But he did get discouraged. Like, you know, he noticed that he was going to be in there for almost life, man, for something that he didn't do. So he was like, God, like, where are you? And that will make anybody think, like, okay, I've been going to church, I've been serving you. Yeah, I made some mistakes in the past, but come on, I don't deserve this. And now they was really they was kind of utilizing the evidence, prosecuted against him, that, hey, you know, he stole the car. He's a bad person. They end up finding a gun inside his home, and you know, it wasn't registered. But he wanted to protect himself, so they're going to use that little bit of evidence to get up here and say, oh, well, yeah, you must be a murderer. You must be the only one over here, you know, murdering people. Even though that the time frames didn't happen. He said he was working since midnight, and then the crime happened around, like, let's say maybe like 12, something like that. But 15 miles for him to actually be in those like 3 different places at once. Is the time frame, it doesn't make any sense. He could have usually used his time and talked to his, you know, boss. His boss was saying he was at work, but they still didn't want to go through it, and they didn't want to go through the whole time management, all that stuff, and when did he clock in. They didn't really want to go into depth and detail, and that really makes me upset, because I mean, if you really want to accuse this man, you got to look at the whole picture, like gather all the evidence. But it's kind of sad that, you know, he did 30 years, but now he's out, he's changing his life and have a positive mind state, and he's doing good things in the community. He still loves Alabama. What was really heartful, if you read the book too, is that, you know, his mother died. He didn't really get to spend time with his mom like that, man. You know, mom was writing him letters, of course, you know, during his, like, I think his 10th, 15th year in prison. But when he found out that his mother died, man, due to a friend, his whole world changed. And he still endured. And it just made me think about life. Like, life's just gonna throw you a monkey wrench, it's gonna throw you curveballs, but are you willing to keep going? Are you willing to push through, you know, through all the BS, through all the darkness? And it really put a lot of things into perspective for me, you know, reading this book. I encourage a lot of people to read this. I think the book's about like $19. You get it off Amazon. I got iBooks. Man, The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton. And I think he's writing another book, but, you know, I'm praying for that brother. Thank you, brother, for just not giving up, man. Some people will commit suicide just for being there for 2 or 3 years, man, just into the regular prison or jail. I mean, him, and just because of his foundation with Christ, man, he continuously to move forward, and he made something out of it. But, you know, 30 years, and you just smelling people, you know, the bodies decaying, you know, again, executed, man, all that stuff, man, for something that you didn't do, that you really accused because the town that you grew up in and because of your skin color. And that can be very discouraging, but he persevered, he kept going, and I feel like, you know, that was a good mark for any young black man to actually learn from and apply, because things is going to happen to us, man, that we can't control, but it's always a solution. You gotta always look for that, man. But The Sun Does Shine, good book, great book. Man, just go ahead and get it. It's just very powerful. But, you know, we all can get through a lot of things, and that's really helped me through basic military training. I'm like, if I can get through this in 2 months, 13 weeks, I can do a lot of things, man. 20 weeks, all that stuff, man. Because at the end of the day, I know that the Lord will never He will never leave me and forsake me, and I know where I stand as a person on this earth. So we gotta find our identity. We gotta renew it. Anthony Ray Hinton's pretty much like a god, man, in a way, man, as far as like just endurance, and that's what we need to tap into. And that's the key. That's the key factor, and that's one of the key ingredients to get through things that's out of your control. It's all mental. What are you? What is your insurance in this video game of life? You gotta keep that in mind. It's your boy Young Lee Jr. It's getting a little late. Just want to make this video here. You guys continue to like, comment, subscribe. Love y'all, man. Deuces.